doing well now that Decker's finally got himself off the golf course after 3 weeks.
I do apologise. I was one mad dash getting here. I spilled my drink on the floor and everything getting ready.
So Decker promised he was leaving the golf course at 8:30 so he could be in time. Do you want to tell everybody what time you actually left, mate?
I left at 10 to 9 on the golf course. It was 10 to 9. Yeah, I was having such a good round. I just couldn't. I couldn't leave, so hence I was running late. I came in. I still had my Under Armour top on, which Adam thought I looked gorgeous in, I think. And then changed that. And one mad. I'm here, but I'm all right. I'm here for you lads. I do apologise. Keep you waiting though.
Don't worry, mate. How are you doing, bestie? How's your legs?
So I'm knackered, mate. I'm absolutely goosed. I've bitten off more than I can chew.
But before we start, just to give everyone a heads up, me and Bestie are involved in a recent charity where we are running 50 miles for the charity Tiny Lives. You can find it on Facebook, you can find it on Instagram. Just follow the hashtag 50 miles for Tiny Lives. Bestie, have you decided to start cycling? Because I've seen you been out on the bike quite a bit now.
I have decided. Well, the way it works is you can either run 50 miles and you can walk 100 or cycle 200. Initially it was walk 200 and I thought, hey, it's a challenge, I'll get my teeth into that. But when they dropped it to walk 100, I thought, I'll see if I can do the cycle one as well. So I'm walking 100 and cycling 200. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I'm 4 days in and I'm absolutely paggered.
So yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, mate. So like I thought 50 miles at the start, I thought 50 miles throughout June. I was like, yeah, it's not that bad. Then first time I've run in a while, I've done 3.5 miles, and I swear to God, I was blown out my arse. Like, I'll tell you that.
It's
after running with you, Chris.
You know when you when you go to the gym a couple of times a week, and you start to kind of feel, it's working this. Like I've caught myself going to shops in shorter shorts. Because I've got a bit of suntan as well off the sunshine, like so. I'm kind of turning into a little bit of a 1-1-1-8 man, a bit like.
I wondered why you were sat there.
Grand.
I was wondering why you were sat there at the start rubbing Vaseline into your nipples. That kind of explains it now. Just getting into character.
Totally unrelated.
Have you ever had that
chafing?
Aye.
Sportsman's nipple.
Before that, I remember I used to go to the gym at Monkton Stadium, and I was wearing a Juve shirt. It was a shirt that I wore when I got relegated because of the financial impropriety. And I remember coming out, and the white stripes happened to be, not the band, the white stripes on the shirt happened to be on my nipples. And I just had red patches on them both. And I thought, like, I cannot wear football shirts anymore for the exercising in because I'm too sensitive, lads.
I'm too sensitive.
Chafy material, isn't it?
That's fucking
awful. I've done like 3 Great North runs, and I've used about 1 million pots of Vaseline on it. Like I'm just kind of smeared head to toe. You know that scene in
And that's before the race.
It is, honestly, it is. That scene in It's Always Sunny when Danny DeVito comes out the couch. He's all slimy. I'm like that before the Great North. It's not pretty, like, it's hairier.
Right,
doesn't sound great, like, to be fair.
I think it must have been that casting couch he came out all slimy from.
You seen that video?
We'll stop it there before we get more images of Bestie naked covered in lube, right?
Well, I can think of, to be honest.
So, right, we've
One
had
for the ladies for later.
We've had a fair bit of news to talk about this week, considering that there's no actual football being played. So I want to start it off with someone who's probably splits fans once again, as we always do, 50-50 in Matty Longstaff. So I know months ago we had this discussion on the podcast about what we should do with Longstaff's contract when it was first up in the air and negotiations were taking place. And as far as we were concerned, I think we said on that podcast that we're pretty confident that he was already gone and that talks had already been in place with other clubs. I know Decker mentioned Watford being one of the clubs which we were pretty positive that he was going to be going to. This week we've saw the news that Udinese are ready to give him 30 grand a week allegedly. I'm not sure how much I believe on that one, but the links with Udinese and Watford is basically it's the same owners, isn't it?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. If I'm honest with you, I didn't know that.
I didn't until the other day. But
yeah.
Once again, you're putting those two together, and the story seems pretty believable. So, first of all, if you were in a position now, I know we're in the midst of a takeover, so it's probably very hard for the club to offer anyone a contract extension by players right now. It's not really going to happen until this is all cleared up. But if you were in a position right now where you could do something, what would your decision be on Matty Longstaff? We'll start with you, Decker, on this one.
I think this is just me personally, right? I think 30 grand a week's a bit much, to be honest with you, for him. I know I've seen a lot of people say that, well, what's a going youngster these days, blah, blah, blah. But I think he's been impressive the games that he's played. He's played 6 times and scored, I think, 2 goals. Do you see him becoming somebody that can be literally running midfield in a Premier League game? Can he become that? I'm not so sure, but they reckon that they've offered him maybe or certainly 20 something.
So
to me, that
apparently Newcastle offered him 15. It was going from 800 quid a week or something like that to 15 grand a week.
Right. So I seen something last night that said 20, but that might be.
I think we've improved it. Apparently, right. the rumors are we've improved.
Yeah.
I don't know how we've improved it when right now God knows what's happening. So who's making that decision right now? So apparently we've upped it to around about 20. But carry on, mate.
I think if we have upped it to 20, I think that's a really good offer. Like to be honest with you, and I think for him to be going from 850 quid a week to 20 after 6 performances or 6 Premier League starts or whatever it's been, and to be able to play at your home club and all the rest of it, I think that's and it's good for the club as well. I think the club have maybe seen this Udinese or Watford deal or whatever and thought, hang on, we're going to have to increase the offer, but there's not many times a player's going to go from 800 quid a week to 20 odd grand. Like there's not many times, to tell you that for nothing. And I think I would definitely offer that, and I would want to keep him. I really would. But I wouldn't pay 30 grand a week. I'll be honest there. Like I wouldn't.
What about you, Mark? What's your thoughts on it?
I think for just the first thing I would mention is you said there about it, uncertain times for the club to be offering contracts, but what you've got to remember is we've just offered contracts and renewed contracts just in the last couple of months to Shelby and who was the other one? Was it Richie?
Richie was the other one. That was before all of this, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, very, very briefly before all of this
still
started.
Before that was still when we were playing football. That though, when they got offered.
But all of this, the whole takeover story and everything like that was still there at the time.
The story was still there, but it wasn't in the hands of the Premier League at that point. So the club was still functioning at that point.
Yeah, I mean they've extended Rose and Lazzaro's.
Is another one, yeah, Rose.
I think today actually.
Lazzaro's got extended a day, yeah. I think it's a bit different extender in the likes of a loan extension to sign a player for 5 years, though.
Yeah,
I agree.
It is give to go in, and I think that as Decker said, going from such a well, I'm saying a small wage, it's a decent wage for a lad of that age. There's plenty of kids out there on the streets that love to be getting that kind of money, but going up to 15, 20 grand is huge. Of course, if somebody is offering you 30 grand, then you're going to look to do that. But you've got to weigh up, I'm going to have to go and move to a foreign country, potentially, if it is to go to Udinese, or even so moving down to London. That difference of 10 grand is going to make a huge difference between the price of things in London versus here. So he's probably not realistically going to be any better off down there. Is he more likely to get games at Watford? I wouldn't think so, based on what they've got available to them. What we've got to remember is this lad's only started maybe half a dozen games for us across the season, and if it wasn't for the unusual circumstances that we found ourselves in with injuries and with suspensions and stuff like that, you probably wouldn't have got a sniff of anywhere near the first team, other than maybe the League Cup games and stuff like that. So
before we move on,
weigh that up a bit.
Before we move on to Bestie's thoughts on that one, I just want to really put it out there. Is I like Matty Longstaff, I do, but I think what Decker's saying, anywhere around 20 grand a week, just to mention that again, it's a decent deal for the kid, isn't it? You cannot really hide behind that. But what I do want to be quite hesitant on this one is when Sean Longstaff first broke onto the scene, he had a fantastic first season, didn't he? Obviously, you picked the injury up, and he's really hasn't really shown that potential this season of what we saw for him. And is it something which the club are looking at and thinking, do we really go and give him a huge contract for the next 5 years when it might be a similar situation? So Bestie, moving on you, what do you think?
I think you're right there. Like, I mean, the Sean Longstaff thing, he's been playing a bit deeper this season. Or had been playing a bit deeper this season than he had last. And I've said from day one, really, with them both, that I think I don't mind either. I think they're both canny little players. But I think there's more of that fans really want them to do well and want them to kind of almost project that a little bit better than they are, perhaps. Because they're local lads, it's a nice story to have two brothers and stuff. I've seen the point made on Twitter. I think Luke Edwards made it, and someone else had it. 30 grand a year, 30 grand a week. Beg pardon. Equates to something like £3-4 million a year, and that would be, I think, a pretty reasonable risk. I mean, there's loads of little caveats. I mean, for a start, the extra if we've offered 20 and Udinese offered 30, he's a very fair lad. Like, that's 10 grand a year on suntan lotion, I reckon. No bother. It's a good time to buy shares in Ambassador or Calypso, whatever he uses. But like, the club could look very, very different in a year, 2 years time. And I don't think, as much as I don't want to kind of badmouth them, I do think they're all right players, and it is nice seeing local lads in the team and all that, the kind of old John Hall thing. You kind of hope that, personally, in 12, 24 months, 3 years time, like, the Longstaffs are elsewhere. If they're still in the first team, then we haven't moved on, basically.
Yeah.
That's I mean, that's the caveat that they can get better in that time as well. Like, but I do think, I mean, it almost sounds arrogant to say it, like, but
no, but it's a good point, though, Bestie. It's a good point. It's a really good point, because if you think if the takeover goes ahead, right, and we're all about this money and all the players that we're being linked with, is Matty Longstaff going to be running our midfield in 2 years' time? If you think of the potential that could come, you have to say no on that one. Like,
you say that, but Man City's got Phil Foden sat there, who they love to have in their team, and is somebody that they're hoping to have in the future. And I'd say that in a couple of years that it's not going to be the same with Longstaff.
I don't think Matty Longstaff's Phil Foden, like, if I'm honest with you there. But I take the point. What I would also say, though, is, and again, I'm just looking at this at Matty's. If I was Matty Longstaff, I would think, right, okay, I could sign a deal here for 4 or 5 years, right? I'm going to go from 850 quid to 20 grand a year, and there's a possibility I could be involved.
20 grand a year.
Apologise. Sorry, apologise. A week, sorry. But I've got an opportunity here to sign this deal and be a part of something that the club have never experienced before. I could be a part of that with my hometown club, of literally going next level. And I've signed a contract for 4 or 5 years. Okay, I might not get the most of game time, going to be a part of that. And for me, that would be a no-brainer if I was Matty Longstaff, personally.
But you've got the flip side of that. He could be looking at that situation and thinking, well, if this takeover does happen, am I going to have that career here?
Well, there's nothing stopping him going out on loan and things like that. If it was to go through the takeover, there's nothing really preventing that, because if the club have give lads decent sized contracts and they're not getting first team football, you would imagine they would start loaning them out. So I don't think that would be a problem, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I've got to think. I like seeing young English players go abroad. Like, I think it's, for years it was kind of, you don't go abroad because the food's weird, or you can't drink tap. It was like the real kind of, almost like a
you can't drink water.
Lads, I tried it once in Magaluf, and there's a good reason not to tell you. Christ.
I'd rather drink the tap water.
That was such a dad thing to say, that, Bestie. That was such a dad thing to say, that.
I'm going to show me age a bit, like. But there was always a kind of, I felt like a suspicion. I mean, for years and years, no one went abroad. Like, young English players would stay in England. And I always thought it felt a little bit small-minded when you look at, like, young French players coming over here, young German players, Belgians more recently. And when Ashley Cole went, Ashley Cole was about 50 at the time, like, but it's like Sancho going to Dortmund, or players, when Joe Cole went to Lille, Joey Barton went to Marseille.
Who's the left back that's over abroad at the minute? Played for Arsenal.
Kieran Gibb went from Spurs. He's playing in Spain.
Is it Gibbs that went on?
Trippier.
He's at Atletico, and like Chris Smalling's at Roma at the minute as well. I
think Young.
He's a
Milan.
That's right, and of course, I think they've got good side them in a minute. No, I think seeing English players go abroad, I think if you live outside your comfort zone a bit, I think it just makes them better people.
It's historically, you've got to have had a pretty good career to get a move abroad from England, isn't it? When you look back across the years, it's players that have always been, pretty high profile in the country already, who have then moved across to go and play in Spain or Italy and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Keegan did it obviously back in the day, didn't he? And then came back. It's you don't see it as often with young players going off, unless they are somebody that is really, really talented, that somebody wants to pick up at a very early age. Like when you look at Barcelona signing 8 and 9-year-olds and stuff like that to go and play in the academy.
Do you think though that really, as a fan base and fans of this club, seeing a local lad like both Longstaffs, but obviously I had heard the rumours from people who follow the youth team that Matty is do you think we should be looking at this thinking he's probably worth the risk? Because what if we don't give him a decent contract that's meeting the likes of other offers, and he does come to be a fantastic player, and once again we're going to be kicking ourselves seeing a local lad playing for a different club when we had that chance to sign him.
Well, look at Michael Carrick, Shearer back in the day. And Carrick's the big one, isn't it? Of where we always were linked with him, in his later years when he was coming to an end there. So
it took a world record fee at the time to bring Shearer back. It was world record at that point. And if Sean Longstaff, Man United were chasing him for 50 million, that was the rumour, right? The rumour was 40, 50. Who's to say in a few years Longstaff's worth 40 and you know what I mean? You're trying to buy him back years to come for 40, 50 million. It looks a bit stupid, doesn't it? Like, look at Man United with Pogba. Them let Pogba go and then they paid 85 or 90 to get him back. I mean, it's... of course, you don't want to be in that situation. I totally take that point.
But that's why it makes sense just to, even if we don't see him having a long-term future at the club, at least get him tied up on a contract that then if we do sell him, we're going to make some money for him, because I think you can walk away for just compensation, which could be 50 to 100 grand, something like that, by all accounts.
Just to ask you then, so do you think if the club have went to 20, let's just say they have, right, hypothetically here, do you think 20 is a fair offer?
Yeah, 100%.
It would be interesting to know, because he's obviously going to be talking to his brother. Yeah. So it would be interesting to see what Sean's getting paid at the minute, and he'll be comparing himself. Well, I don't know, my brother's getting paid this month much. He's only had maybe 6 months in the first team longer than me, although he has been around the squads and things like that longer than him. Yeah. He's got a year age wise, so you've got to look at that and say, well, if Sean's getting paid 25 grand, then surely 20 grand's enough.
No, I'm with you. I think it's a fair offer. Anywhere around about 20 grand, it is a fair offer. You've got to remember, going from 800 quid to 20 grand.
For 6 starts, for 6 Premier League games.
It's astronomical, isn't it? And like,
it is.
I would love to see the kid play at Newcastle for the rest of his life. I really would. But it is a risk. At the end of the day, it's going to be a risk. But personally, I think it's probably a risk that you take.
I agree.
Everybody agree?
Yep.
So we've had a few questions on through there. So first one being asking if we've recalled Shell from a loan spell to Steve Wraith. So I got a message off Shell last week saying, I've been asked to go on Steve Wraith's question answer. Is it okay if I go? I was like, of course it is. I was like, as long as you mention like get shots through, it is. Of course you can go. But we'll have recalled her, so don't worry about it. She's still part of the Gaelic Shots team. We haven't sold her. We've just recalled her. So
got to give her a new contract though. Offer her more money.
She had some demands. But she's ours, right? So you're not getting any more, Steve.
It's just a good job she's not as high maintenance as Decker is.
She's not as well. Like she's not.
I can't even disagree with you there. Like, to be fair.
Right. So something I want to talk about, which was highlighted today, is the club put a couple of videos on training sessions. And so there was 2 players which were highlighted who scored. You've got Andy Carroll.
Honestly.
Andy Carroll scored, and the comments were basically people, fantastic to see him scoring goals, blah 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 blah. So praise for Andy Carroll. Flip it around.
Imagine.
So Joe Linton scored 2 goals, and the comments underneath that.
No, he only scored 1 because the second was offside.
Well, he scored 2 goals, and the comments were absolutely appalling. Some of those comments of people who just slating them for no reason whatsoever, apart from he scored 2 goals in training. I would expect him to score in training. Like, give it a rest, man. Honestly, like Just moving across to you, Mark, I'll let you talk on this one because I know you're quite passionate about this one.
No, I don't think I can bring myself, dude.
So basically, in a nutshell, Joe Linton scored 2 goals. The comments on the social media, on the Twitter account, were shocking. People slating Joe Linton. So over to you, Mark.
It's just absolutely ridiculous that people can sit and want one of our players who is, at the end of our day, through no fault of his own, our record signing. But why would you want our record signing to fail? Why would you not want to support him and get behind him and offer him a bit of encouragement? But no, people would rather go and say, "Oh, the second goal shouldn't count. It was offside." That was the comments. That no, he only scored one. The second one was offside.
I think I saw one of the comments as well saying he didn't really score the first one because he fell over.
Well, it's because he twisted and hit it to go in.
Whoever commented that, if you're watching this now, you're a wankers. Like, if anyone said that, no.
I love how you're pointing the penguin at them as well.
Oh, sorry, the Baines Teddy, fuck no, that's horrendous.
It's crazy, isn't it?
What's going on, man? Like,
it just shows you, though, isn't it? And it comes back to what Bestie was just saying there about it's the whole mentality of wanting the local lad to come good, and the fact that Carroll's been in the team, he hasn't scored any goals. He's had, some impact in stuff like that and creating stuff. Whereas Joe's actually come in, he's scored goals, all right, not as many as we would have liked. There's an argument that he's had more opportunity than Carroll has, but
I remember Joe is probably that player who's played through every single injury that he's picked up as well.
Yeah.
If you ask Joe Linton, the question is, would you have liked to have scored more goals? Of course, he's going to say yes. We all know that we all hope that he would have scored more, but to knock a lad who's in training, scoring goals and trying his best for the team or whatever it is to get into match fitness, to get sharp to play, to knock him for that is just, that's not acceptable for me. Like, that's just not on. That's not what a fan is like. And it really pisses us off, if I'm honest with you. And then, as you say, though, the flip side of that is Carroll scores a header and he's the best thing since sliced bread. Like, how was that right? Like, that's not right. It's
because one of them cost 40 million and the other one didn't. That's why.
Well, maybe. But it didn't cost me 40 million. It wasn't my money. You know what I mean?
There was a video of San Maximin a couple of days ago as well, kind of going on the left-hand side. And I'm watching it. All I can think of is like, pass it. And he just doesn't. I was underwhelmed by that.
I watched that. Bestie, I watched that, and I thought it was Kraft defending. I went, that's mint defending that by Kraft. Couldn't get past him.
Yeah, but the other thing that again, that's what I know it is. And I know I put a comment on the day about everyone's just negative about everything now in life, no matter what it is. But
I did like the irony that you were moaning about how negative everybody was being by putting on negative comments.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at here is no matter what somebody posts on social media, no matter what, someone will comment with a negative comment. They just will. But the same situation, he picks the ball up on the edge of our own box. That's just training, by the way, but it just hears us out. He travels with the ball all the way into their half. So basically, Jonas used to do that for us constantly. Give the defence a bit of a break, travel 40, 50 yards. Yes, okay. He passed it back in the end. Okay, he did. Say it on that particular clip. He ran forward. He had about 3 people to beat, turned around, passed it back, and then we're built up from the back. Everyone on the comments I seen was saying, "Oh, you've run 60 yards and passed back 20, idiot." Like, the fuck, man? It's not FIFA, man. It's not FIFA. Like, they couldn't understand that. Well, at least he's carried the ball and he's give the defence a bit of a break. Do you know what I mean? He's not like Hayden's of the world, no offence, but would collect the ball on the edge of his box and pass it 5 yards. Do you know what I mean? Oh, I didn't want it. You have it. At least Hayden's got the balls to take it and run with it. I'm winding myself up.
The same thing, isn't he?
He's off again. He's doing it again. He's doing his usual trick. Look at him.
It's all about ball retention.
Sorry. Yeah, but no, it's bollocks, man.
I watched that though, and I was impressed by Kraft. I was really impressed by his defending in that one.
There's something wrong with you.
No, but like
this lockdown's hit you hard.
I swear to God, he did well.
But yeah, it's frustrating that though. It's frustrating that the club, they're posting the odd post here and there, and people are still just having a go, man. Like, where do people get off, man? Do you know what I mean? Like,
the good thing is, at least with playing behind closed doors, at least it's going to take, some of the negativity away from this. It maybe will allow Joel to play with a bit more relaxation and not have that extra burden on his shoulders. Maybe.
Let's hope he's not on Twitter, because my God, you can just imagine kind of the live streaming tweets that'll be going out there.
He's on Instagram, mate. He's
I
on
think-
Instagram and he gets a
I
comment
hope
on
he
there.
doesn't. I hope he doesn't read his Instagram messages.
It's absolutely
just-
shocking. Like, it
It's
is.
just stupid, man.
It is shocking.
I just do not get it. Listen, I don't like Jacob Murphy, right? I've admitted that, right? I've
Really?
sat on here.
Really?
You've never mentioned it.
Well, there you go. Yeah, but many times I've said he's not good enough. But if he scored an absolute raker from 30 yards on training, I'm not going to come and go, "Oh, training's no bother. Who cares about training?" Like I'm not an arsehole. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's not on. I'm sorry, it's not on.
He would. He would be putting it in. He would be putting it in the message stores. Man, it's only in training.
I would.
Cost 12 million. What a waste of money.
You calm down now, Digger.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why I wind myself up. I apologise.
Right, so just he's going to start going again. I'm stopping you, Digger.
I was sorry.
He's gone awfully red in the face, hasn't he?
I'm getting really angry actually.
As we're sat here now on a Thursday, just like every other Thursday, we've saw another article go out about the takeover and how it shouldn't happen. So there's been a few questions based on that one. I'm not sure which newspaper it was, which put it out there. Does anyone know?
Telegraph again, wasn't it?
Telegraph,
It's normally the Telegraph.
Always the Telegraph.
So is Telegraph the one that Delaney works for?
No, he's
that's
independent.
Independent, is he? Right,
But
okay.
It's Jason Burt. Is it Jason Burt or Jamie
Yeah,
Burt?
Jason, I
he's
think,
one who
wasn't it?
kinda- Yeah.
Jason Blurt.
So,
he was one
yeah,
who's,
Jason Burke.
this evening we've seen the article go out there. Basically, once again, people are panicking over it, but it's the exact same story that's been going around for the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Well, even the letter's dated from
It's
2 weeks ago, isn't it?
Basically,
20th or something like that.
Well, in a nutshell, what it is, it goes into talk about Richard Morstad's response to the letter from the journalist's fiance, basically saying, I think Bestie, I think you just put it in the group. So do you want to just talk me through that letter, mate? Because you just put it in there.
It's basically an acknowledgement that they've received the letter and that they're going to kind of fine tooth comb. There's nothing at all that I can see in there that's newsworthy. Here we are, dear. Here we are, dear Mr. Dixon, who must be representing the last.
So this is the response by Mosters, yeah.
Yeah, it's dated the 28th of May. Thank you for your letter dated 20th of May. I remain extremely sympathetic to your client's position. I'm unable to correspond in any more detail than we already have on this matter. Our process is strictly private and must remain so. For this reason, a meeting is not possible, particularly in light of correspondence on this confidential matter appearing in the media. However, I assure you and your client that her representations are being fully considered in our progress. So that, to me, is thanks for writing to it. We're aware of the situation.
I think the only surprise that came out of it for me was it appears to that they've sent 2 letters at least into him. I think that was the only bit of surprise that came to it from me. But
that's just a corporate response, that isn't it? Just one of them corporate messages. That's just it's a right PR to say that we've accepted it, we're thinking about it, I'm dreaming about it, and we'll deal with it. That's
basically a template. That's what it is. It's basically a template.
Acknowledgement, isn't it, that you've I'm acknowledging you've sent in the letter. Nothing's changed since the last letter you sent in. We're still looking at it. Sympathetic to you. We'll look at what you've said.
Which we all are. Of course we all are. Jesus, it's awful for her. Of course I understand that. I would be pissed off as well, but do you know what I mean? That response there is just is what he has to say. It's what the Premier League have to say. As you rightly say, we've accepted it, we've read it, we've sympathised with it, and we are dealing with the process so far. But it's nothing new, it's nothing newsworthy, nothing to make you worry. Shouldn't worry you, I wouldn't think.
So just to touch on the whole takeover thing as well, we saw an article a few days back from Tom, who does the football law, and there's quite a lot of people went and read that one and give it feedback for all good reasons. So we got him on the podcast. We got Shell and Reese to do a podcast with him on Monday night, I think it was. And so if you haven't listened to that, it's available. It's doing really well as a podcast, and it's a great insight to. I know we've had it with Shell and Reese going into the whole conversation, to the background of the fit and proper test and the owners test, but it gives a little bit more than that with Tom on board as well. So it goes on for around about 45 minutes thereabouts, and it's great. It's great to listen to. It's like I said, it's bringing someone on board that isn't a Newcastle fan like Shell. He's a Villa fan, Tom, but he seems pretty positive. He can't find a reason why this would feel either.
The only little bit of it that kind of got the alarm bells ringing for me was towards the end when he says, "Do you think there's a chance it could be pulled?" He says, "Well, I know, actually, it's entirely possible." But I mean, the rest of it with regards to the letter that I keep forgetting the last name, the journalist's fiance, to do with kind of her concerns. He says, "Well, I don't suppose that would be the kind of thing that would that would really come into thinking." Oh, well, that kind of maybe suggests otherwise, but I don't think it would have an effect. The piracy seems to be the issue, doesn't it? I mean, I saw George Cochran respond to someone this week. George has been a bit more, not cagey, but a bit more selective with his responses, maybe, over the past fortnight or so, since that Sean Ingle article in The Guardian a couple of weeks ago. And George said they're going back and forth over piracy, so that seems to be the nub. But as Tom says in the podcast, and no one needs to listen to it now, I've ruined it. Tom says, like, if they can prove that the PIF and the KSI kind of ruling government, if you want to call it that, there's a degree of separation between them, then it's moot.
Yeah, basically saying if they can prove that it's the same person behind the piracy is linked with and have a role at Newcastle United and a purchase in Newcastle United, then of course it'll be a problem. But basically, they can't prove it. They've never been able to prove it, and they can't pin it on one person.
Because the French tried it, didn't they? The French tried.
The Americans tried it as well. I think, mate. I think it was both of them.
There's too much money. These guys ain't gonna be getting their fingerprints will be nowhere near the pie, and they'll someone else will get the short straw of being found guilty for that. In my opinion, anyway.
I think the same. Like I think they'll have been careful, they'll have been savvy enough to make sure there's a couple of degrees of separation in there where there's no where the kind of that.
Don't get us wrong. Kind of, they probably are guilty of sin. I'm not beating around the bush here. They're probably guilty of sin, but these guys are clever enough to put a lot of fall guys in front of them before it gets to them. Do you know what I mean? So,
you imagine they would have done the homework before any bid was made, before any kind of contracts were signed. Or you could have been going, right, here's what we're. I mean, even if you can be in a bit of a bubble, can't you, when you live somewhere like that? So in Saudi, they might not have an appreciation of how they are regarded or how the regime's regarded, you know.
Yeah.
But Amanda Stavy's going to be clever enough and kind of switch on enough to go, right, here's the obstacles that you could hit. Yeah. And here's what we'll do about it. And they're not going to have like some shitty lawyer, but some like really inexperienced, like kind of fresh out of university lawyer, and they're going to have that top odds on it, making sure it's watertight. Like, so, absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying it's definitely going to go through because I've got no information that anyone else doesn't have. But the only thing that concerns me slightly is that WTO thing that was in the Guardian article a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the possibility that there might be kind of holding on for that report being made public or being kind of published to see what's in there. But they've had a draft for weeks, haven't they? So I don't know.
They've had the release of it. We haven't had it, but apparently they've got it.
They've had it since mid-May, early mid-May.
Weeks,
yeah. So I remain confident that it will go through. Maybe it's more hopeful than confident, but I don't see anything too concerning so far. And piracy seems to be a big thing.
So we'll see with the piracy thing as well. Last week we saw it. Basically, if it's going to be a problem, we'll buy the rights to the Premier League. Like, if something's going to come in with way, we'll buy it.
That's a big thing, because the fact that the Saudis are having to watch any sort of football through these illegal streams because of the trade disputes that they've got with Qatar, it just makes the fact that they want to see this even more. And the fact if they then come and buy a team where the country's got a vested interest in that team, just as we've seen with Leicester, as we've seen with Wolves and stuff like that, whole countries get behind supporting that team because of the links of the country. So, of course, everybody in Saudi is going to want to watch Newcastle. The fact that they've been streaming old FA Cup games, friendly games and stuff like that just shows that the interest is there. They've went and bought the rights to that, so they're going the right way about it and stuff like that. Now, after there was some initial thoughts around whether they should be showing them or not, they went and bought the rights to make sure that they were all above board and everything like that to show them. So I can just see that again. The Premier League will be looking at this and thinking, right, there's going to be a huge opportunity here for Saudi Arabia to buy Premier League rights to then distribute that throughout the Middle East to those countries that are in dispute with Qatar. Which is why this whole station got set up in the first place.
So while we've been talking there, Neil JR, hi Neil, all the way from Wales. Please take Decker off your wrist. I'm saying that now.
That sounds very wrong.
Explain that, because that sounds really wrong.
I'm not even going to explain it. If you want to explain, go on Neil JR's Twitter account and find out why Decker is on his wrist. So
it's a good tattoo, Neil.
he mentions on this one. He said, you think this takeover will go through, or we'll get a decision on it basically before our first game on the 21st of June?
What's that? 2.5, 3 weeks away. Yeah, hope so, wouldn't you?
You'd like to think so, like Christ, wouldn't you? Yeah, that would be so long.
It's not. If it was not to, and if we're still in the dock, it's not very good for the Premier League. That is it.
What do you mean? So you mean like
it doesn't affect brilliantly on them, like the time it's taken, and
how are the players going to feel, like not knowing what could they be in store for them in the future and in the coming weeks?
Yeah.
It must be difficult for a player right now saying, God knows if I'm going to be here next year, because
I think it's also really difficult, and I'm not sympathising here before someone says it, but I do think it's also shit for the buyers and for the selling and for Ashley. Like he'll want to know what the hell's going on. Do you know what I mean? He'll want an answer, and as will Amanda Staveley and of course the people that are buying. And the longer it goes on, everyone's just in limbo, because Ashley might be thinking he might have the money he's getting off this deal, in his mind already invested in something else. Do you know what I mean? Like in another business project or whatever. And now he's sitting here thinking, fucking, how long is it taking? Do you know what I mean? I want to know. And he's an impatient guy. He's a stubborn bloke. So he'll be getting pissed off as well. Like,
you were listening to the Athletic podcast this week, and George Carlton made a point where there was a goalkeeper at Hearts, I think, that we pretty much signed. It was done, and then the takeover thing happened, coronavirus kind of hit, and everything got stalled. And he's subsequently been released, so he's now jobless. Because of, you couldn't guarantee that the new owners would go, we'll get him in. If Steve Bruce is still in charge for the rest of the season, which is obviously going to be the case now, then maybe he would have come in. But he's, as a result of the kind of time it's taken, has lost his job. So it is affecting. It affects. There's been things on Twitter about fans' mental health being affected by, and it's like literally like livelihoods. This bloke's jobless now.
Well, you've got to remember the club has still got people that are sat on furlough there. It's a skeleton staff in the club at the moment, and if a takeover had have gone through and been announced by now, you would probably bet your house on it that wouldn't be the case right now. That these members of staff would be back working in the club.
Definitely, yeah, 100%.
So to move on from the takeover, because we haven't really had any progress in the last God knows how many weeks now. It's all been hearsay. So the games got released today, or reported that our first game will be on Sunday, the 21st of June, which is that Sheffield United game. It's 2:00 kickoff on Sky. So it just feels good to have a date set on it, doesn't it?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Football's back.
Are you worried? Are you worried a little bit?
Well, last week I wasn't. I had W's for every single game I had coming, but I know what's going to happen. The closer it gets, I'll obviously be a bit nervous. But I agree with Mark. It's just nice, isn't it? You feel like you've got something to look forward to a little bit. Do you know what I mean? And it's going to actually be a proper game. For all, it's going to be, of course, a different situation completely with no fans and all the rest of it. But yeah, but I'm looking forward to it though. It should be good.
You know what's going to happen, right? Say if we go and win that game 1-0 against Sheffield United, Joe Linton scores. You know what the comments are going to be like? Well, he's had 8 weeks to practice.
It will be. You're right, mate. You're right. It'll be something like that. Yeah, 100%. Did you see him? Do you know, this is changing a little bit, but obviously I don't know if it was a German league or maybe an Aussie league or something, but they're obviously trying to generate atmosphere in the ground. So they've put like pictures of the season ticket holders in the seats. Did you see that?
German.
Did you see it, Chris?
Mönchengladbach it was, aye.
What, the best one was in.
Someone put Harold Shipman on. They put a picture of Harold Shipman.
No
Honestly,
way.
mate, I'll send it. That's the point. So it was like they had loads of pictures, like Baines and that there waving and stuff, and then there was Harold Shipman sitting in the
Wow.
The best one I've seen was it was either China or Japan or something like that, and they had loads of blow up sex dolls and stuff like that.
Mate,
in the crowd. It was like them silicon ones, wasn't it? The ones that you get to like on the late night documentaries.
Your favourite shows, there, mate.
Mark's got one behind him, and he's got one on the floor.
Yeah. What time are they on now? Set me box.
That would be mental, that though, because I guarantee, if we did that, someone would have what's he called? Who Gaza went to
Alan Barnes, 100%. Alan Barnes would be.
Alan Barnes.
The 27 Alan Barnes is in the crowd.
Raoul
Moat. People like that, wouldn't there? Anyway, sorry, we'll change that before it gets too dark. So yeah, but you know what I mean. I'm trying to get it.
You'd have Spender, Alan Barnes,
Jimmy Neal.
Jimmy Neal, Sting.
Get all them in there.
There'll be a full lot of them. Honey Munster wearing his Newcastle shirt. I'd get him.
Andy Carroll would pass his Jeff off by a Grove these days now, wouldn't he? We'll get him in there with these little chops that he's been growing during lockdown.
So, obviously the games are starting again, and we're going to be playing 3 games in the space of a week. Obviously, one of those being the quarter-final game, City. I know this game isn't suggested to get played at a neutral ground, but the Man City game in the Premier League that we'll still have to play apparently is going to get played at a neutral ground, the same with the Liverpool game. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it'll make a difference, or what?
There was a thing in Germany when the Germans first brought their league back. Like, I think in the first 2 rounds of games was 2 home wins in total out of like 20 games. So playing neutral, apart from the dressing rooms being a bit different, I don't suppose it'll make much of a difference, really.
I think with an away game, I think is more so the intimidation of the fans and stuff, isn't it? You know, if you go away and you're playing at a tight ground and the fans are on you, that's how it gets an intimidating atmosphere. But if there's nobody there, at the end of the day, it's a piece of grass, right? Like, I think it's more so the atmosphere coming into the ground, or certainly coming out in the pitch, is the problem. But with no fans being there, I don't really think it matters.
You've obviously, like what Bestie touched on there, you've got the whole change in dressing room sort of scenario as well. But would you just imagine that the home team whose ground it was supposed to be getting played at would have the home facilities?
That's exactly
what
I
imagine. So they do the cup final.
Yeah.
Any is worried of the standard of what we're going to be at coming back to this?
I think they're all going to be shocking, mate. I think every single team is going to be in the same boat. So I don't even think we could use that as an excuse, to be honest with you, if we're shite, because everyone's been in the same situation, haven't we?
I don't mean to be negative, because I've had a go having a previously on here just about negativity, but exactly Barcelona before we went into this problem, right?
We'll be fine, man. Joe scored 2 in training.
Well, yeah, I hope so, mate. Of course, I hope so, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a tad worried, even though last week I said we'd win every game. But I think every team is going to struggle, of course, to hit the ground running. But I am a little bit worried of just how bad we might be. But we'll see, I guess.
The club doctor is it Paul Clements? Clements, isn't it? Which one
he's a coach.
Physio, isn't he, or something?
Clements is Steve Bruce's mate, a coach.
The club's doctor, he's done a couple of interviews over the last week or so. He done one with BBC 5 Live, I think it was, yesterday. Basically, he goes into depth, like basically saying that it will be a struggle if the players get injured, because they haven't got the time frame to get back to fitness. And I would be quite worried. Our past that we've had with muscle injuries as well this season. Yeah, I am quite worried about the players picking them up quite easily.
Well, you're saying there, was it? Sorry, three in a week? Did you say there? 3 in 10 days or something?
3 in a week, mate.
3 in a week. It is pretty much, yeah.
Well, that's yeah. We couldn't play one a week, man, at one stage of the season, could we? Let's be fair. So,
especially with it being the first 3. I mean, maybe it's 4 or 5 games in, maybe but the first 3 in a week going from nothing.
Yeah.
But that's going to be hard. That's why obviously the Premier League brought in those new temporary rules to allow an extra number of substitutions. You're allowed to name a bigger bench and stuff to allow.
Did you find that interesting? That they still have to do it over three subs, if that makes sense. It's 5 subs, but they've only got 3 opportunities to do it. So you're going to have to do 2, 2, and 1, or 1, 2, 2.
All right, okay. So it's basically just to stop the game, stopping every 10 minutes in the second half.
I think because when it got injury time, people would go, right, mint, we've got 5 subs to get through.
Take the piss.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, but I think that was a good option.
Quite clever. It's quite a clever option, that, to be fair.
Yeah,
it shows a bit of forethought, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It's definitely going to be fatigue and stuff like that. That's going to come into it. We see it over Christmas, where there's a big number of games. You see it in the Championship, where there's obviously a lot more midweek games than there is in the Premier League and stuff like that, where you pick up these soft tissue injuries and people are just get tired. Because only after a game you get at least a day off and a couple of days to recover and stuff like that. You're not going to get that.
Yeah, there's no doubt the guys would have been working hard at home. You know what I mean? Of course, they would have been strict. Probably, maybe Danny Rose at the chip shop. But
I don't think Andy Carroll was down Coleman's in South Shields last week.
Yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me.
Getting his fish and chips.
Well, I suppose the odd treat. You know what I mean? He scored a header in training. He's probably treating himself. but yeah, it's like they've probably been working very hard at home. But we all know when you go to that level of what they're going to be playing at. You know what I mean? I'm concerned with your Miggies and your Saints. The faster players that are just going to be from 0 to 100. Them are the ones that would personally worry me.
We're seeing it with Saint before,
especially
didn't we?
Saints,
yeah,
exactly. That worries me greatly.
Hamstrings and grinds and stuff like that.
You can look on the flip side of that and think that this delay now, we're all seeing some players come back, and you can have more options. So I think Paul Dummett's back in training there. He's fit, ready to go at left back. So if you had the choice, just randomly put it out there, Dummett over Rose?
He seemed to favour Dummett in the middle, didn't he, with Richie on the left? When they were both fit.
Yeah, so you're right, but
that might not be the...
Those three centre backs, though, I wouldn't drop those for Dummett. Like,
well, you remember before the break, we changed, didn't we, to 4 at the back, and went to the way I would like to see we play. So I had to credit him at the time for doing that because it was just a bit too negative. Maybe it was almost 5 at the back in a sense. I think I do believe he'll stay with Rose, depending how fit he is. By the way, and my other point with Rose, is, and I said this last week or whenever we spoke, he hasn't been very happy about playing. Right, like he's on about he doesn't give a fuck about the country's what was it, morale,
wasn't it?
He doesn't care. He's more concerned about himself. Now, if he's not in the right frame of mind to play, then he doesn't play. I mean, whereas Dummett, I think today I seen something from Dummett saying, it's great, it's back, and we can't wait to get going. I'm willing to play. You'd rather have him in the team if he's wanting to play. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there.
I think I'd on paper you would say Rose gets in ahead of Dummett, but I think Dummett would give you more heart and more effort than what I've seen from Rose. Obviously, Rose is technically and a better player, but he just hasn't demonstrated it for me.
It wouldn't have helped as well, though, for these loan players that have came in. They've only had a short spell at the club. Basically, they're starting again from scratch, aren't they? Coming into a team that haven't had that flow of games that most loanees would get.
I think it must have been terribly hard for them, in terms of, like off the field. I mean, forget that they haven't been able to go train or anything. So they're already in a country that, like Lazaro's of the world, they're not really used to being here anyway. And to just be stuck away on your own, maybe with your wife perhaps or your girlfriend or whatever, but that must have been
to be
torture.
fair, I think a lot of them, as soon as lockdown was about to go in, a lot of them picked the stuff up and put it off anyway, didn't they?
That's fair enough. Hands up, and I didn't know that. So that's
I'm pretty sure Lazaro and I'm sure Joe Linton, they went back to wherever needs be. Makes
sense. Yeah.
I'm not convinced I would have been going back to Italy, like.
I don't think he went to Italy.
At the start of it,
I don't think he went to Italy, mate.
He's Australian, isn't he, Lazaro? Is he Australian?
Yeah, he's Australian, yeah. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that there was at least a handful of the Newcastle players that did jet off to wherever needs be to get away from everything. But it's a great point, to be fair, Decker. If those ones that did stay here, basically you're in a foreign country, you've got a loan over here. You're basically by yourself, aren't you, apart from your teammates that you meet at the club.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we've been going for 45, 50 minutes there. Have we got anything else that any of you want to get off your chest on this one?
No, I don't think so. Not from what I think of.
I'm really shocked. Decker, you normally have something that you want to rant about.
Yeah, we'll probably finish and I'll be like, oh man, I meant to say this. But no, I didn't think so, no.
No, it's just, I would say that I watched the podcast you did 2 nights ago now on the Supporters Trust
with Alex.
Yeah,
Monday night, yeah.
Monday. Yeah, it was good. Nice to have a bit of dialect. And I thought he was quite honest in the answers that he was given, and it's nice to have a.
To be fair to Alex, I said before we started recording, when there's anything that yourself or the trust wouldn't really want to go into, and he said it's completely free reign. He's get say whatever you want. He's get the harder the questions, the better. He's because more people will understand him, and we've got no reason to hide behind things. Everything's there for everyone to see. Everything's public knowledge eventually, and when we have to release things, he went so go with it. And like you said, Mark, I think on the back of that, we've had mint comments and mint feedback from people across not just for speaking to the trust, but for building relationships with the other likes of fan channels, podcasts, and things like that, which I think needs to be done. It's I know we've got history myself and the other podcast, but there's a lot of lads that do the True Faith podcast that I get on with, and I think it's about time to brush everything aside and start from scratch. To be honest with you.
It's the dawn of a new era for the club, so it's nice to have that connection, because too often, and we've seen it, massively on social media, that there's lots of fans at each other's throats and stuff like that because of frustration, I guess, of the current situation of what's happening, or not happening behind the scenes. It probably is more to the point. But yeah, no, it's nice to have to hear their plans and for them to be quite open about some of the stuff that's been said in the past.
Alex texted this morning as well, basically saying that it's gone down really well from his side as well, and there was over 30 people that have subscribed on the back of the podcast getting released, which is decent numbers. But when you think about it, probably people that have either been quite dubious or reluctant to sign up, then having something like ourselves, if we're going out there and backing them and seeing that some of us are involved and members of the trust, it's only a good thing for everyone, isn't it?
Well, if they're paying £1 to them, they can pay £1 to us for Patreon.
Well, to be fair, mate, there was one comment that says that I've signed up for the trust and the Gallagher Shots Patreon.
That's what we like to hear.
Jackpot. But yeah, fingers crossed for those that have signed up for Patreon. I know we haven't put anything out this week, but in the WhatsApp group that we've got, a few of the lads, especially me, was putting ideas across. So fingers crossed, we're going to have a few more podcasts coming out next week, and most of those will be going out on early release or Patreon only. So sign up. The link's always in the description beneath the videos, beneath the podcast. So click on that. And like I said last week, it's what, £2 something a month, like minimum. You can go up to anything around about £8 a month, but anything that you can spare, it helps. And like, it gets invested on the podcast itself and things like that. It's not going in anyone's pockets. We're getting little special lights because you can see my face.
I was just going to say, look how bright you are tonight with your little lights that you can be able to buy.
Can see my face, and look, if without Patreon, this is what it would look like.
Oh, that's much better. That's much better. Brilliant. Stop subscribing.
Cancel your direct debits.
Get it off. We don't have to look at his face anymore.
That's something we haven't covered, but you don't have to if you don't want to. You mentioned
my
direct
face?
Debits. No, direct debits. You know where I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, we could talk about it for 5-10 minutes.
What was your thoughts, on the whole situation, the whole scenario? It hasn't changed much. We already we've discussed this previously. But
I think anyone that's quite sensible about it knows why we're not getting refunded these direct debits. But like I said in the WhatsApp group last week, I went, we should be getting at least something from the club. Not they don't have to mention the takeover or anything like that, but the reason why we're probably not getting anything is because nobody knows anything and anything what's happening. But I think as a fan base right now, we need to be patient with it. We know the reason why it's not getting looked at and they're not getting refunded, but eventually I would expect them to return people's money that they're owed.
You say that people know why it's not happening, but that's not what I'm seeing on social media.
People do though, mate. People know why. They just want a reason.
But it's as if they don't acknowledge the fact that in one breath they're talking about the takeover and that it needs to happen really quickly and all that kind, and then the next breath is it's disgusting that we haven't had the money's refunded. The two are interconnected so much that you've got to have one before the other, and it's.
He said Ashley saying them a cart before the horse or whatever it was he said.
But it is pretty much common sense. You look at this situation, the club cannot refund those tickets because we're in the situation right now where any moment this takeover could be announced. So there's obviously something like a freeze on the bank accounts or an amount that's been declared of that's how much is there, and that only day-to-day running costs will be met. These are projected to be this amount of money per month and stuff like that. So you cannot then go and say, oh well, we're going to have to now take out £100,000-200,000 from the accounts to refund. Yeah, I'm just clicking these figures out, but that's the common sense approach to it. But what people don't really seem to be grasping that. So
the point you're making is bang on, but I mean, I'm going to change slightly here in terms of a scenario. I've ordered a bike from Halfords, right? Just hear us out. I've ordered a bike from Halfords, right? No, listen, right? And it says on my app that it's.
I hope you got it through the cycle to work scheme.
I didn't actually. That's rent as well. That's a lie. You just rent the bike. You don't actually own the bike as well. Anyway, so I bought a bike, right? And it was meant to come on the 29th of May, right? Happy days. So I'm staying in with everybody. Not in Ghana, with everybody, but I stayed in. Bike did no communication, no email, no nothing, right? Saturday came, same scenario, now. So he's showing it, Adam's showing it. They were gone, mate, that horrible bloody orange line of death. So I emailed them and I got in contact with someone, just got an apology, and that was it, basically. They says, it'll definitely be with you in 2 to 3 days. I'm sitting here now, it's Thursday, it's still out. I still haven't got my bike. Communication's the problem. I don't mind that the bike hasn't come. I understand that there's hell on at the minute and there's probably thousands of people want a bike. Just email us and say, we apologise that it hasn't arrived. This is the reason why. We'll hope to have it to you by this date. And to go back to the real story, the club, it's communication. And I understand that they're in a situation which is confidential and blah, blah, blah. But you cannot tell me someone can't send one template email out just saying, listen, we understand your frustration. There's reasons as of why we can't do the following. Once this is cleared up, we'll sort it out for you. Thank you for your patience. Kiss me arse.
There's been no acknowledgement at all, has there?
Nothing, mate. Nothing. And this is from day one. The first podcast we did like this, when we couldn't go to Ashley, we said then there hadn't been any communication from the club. That was 8, 9 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago, whenever it was. And there hasn't been a single email or a single, even a notification on the website to say something. Just even a banner on
Soz. Just saying soz.
Soz. Cans ready, soz.
In the club's defence, they've always said that they won't comment on speculation because, as you know, as much as we know how advanced this takeover is, it is still speculation because
but we're not asking them to comment on the takeover. We're asking them to comment on the money. Yes. Who's on monthly direct debits? Yeah, I know you're not, Decker. You pay full, don't you normally?
I pay monthly.
I used to.
Yeah, I've been paying since January, February.
Yeah, so
for next season,
the three of us right now will be paying for next season, and we don't even know what's going to happen next season either.
Exactly. But they might do a Sunderland. They might do a Sunderland and say, right, pay £800, but you'll get the stream, the home games. You'll be fine.
That's mental. That's mental.
Yeah,
surely that's not allowed. Can't be.
Yeah.
I think they're still technically delivering a product, aren't they? So there'll be something in the terms.
£400 to watch fucking League One on your telly.
Somebody did put in somebody put on Twitter maybe yesterday some terms and conditions from the ticket around if games couldn't go ahead for XYZ, that they would
it's no follow the clubs in it. I'm sure I'd say some bullshit like that. So, no follow the clubs.
He's just a Del Boy, but anyway, fuck him. But yeah, sorry, Chris.
I think that's on ours. I think that's on ours as well, mate. I think it's.
No, that was on ours, not there. Yeah. I was talking that on ours, not.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was.
I'm sure it got reported weeks ago or something. If it's no fault of the clubs that games can't be played, then you won't get a refund. I'm pretty sure that it's along those lines.
Oh well, that's good news.
We will though. We will.
You will.
It's just.
You'd imagine so. Like
we cannot be told that we will because.
Well, I'll be honest here. If the takeover doesn't happen, I wouldn't hold your breath. If it doesn't happen, I don't think Ashley will cough up. Like that's just how I feel. Because he'll use the statement you've just said to us there about it's not his fault, so you're not getting now back. But anyway,
it's one area. Tickets is one area where Ashley's normally got it right as well, or the club's got it right under Ashley quite often. Yeah. I mean,
he gave 10,000 free away, and everyone was kicking off about that now. But,
I was just going to say, notwithstanding that, but like the pricing for cup matches and stuff like that's been pretty decent for the past few years.
You're right there, mate. Yeah, you're right there.
Right, so we're done.
Aye, and before we go, did you see the Chronicle said? And this is very very quick. The Chronicle says
Colombo de Petri. Yeah,
Colombo.
Another thing.
Just one more thing. I love Colombo, by the way. I think the Chronicle said, who's got the takeover cans still? Did someone? I think it was them or someone put on about. Did you see it? Have you still got your takeover cans left?
I've replaced mine. God knows how many times.
Because these were mine, and I had to bring in them. And I had 6 cans ready all these times, all these weeks. I've went and bought more cans, but I've kept 6 in the corner ready. But today is the day I've had to bring it.
I never had any ready to start with. To be honest with you,
To be fair, I've drank my takeover cans the first night, I think.
That's what I thought. Honestly, I had mine outside in the garden, just sitting there, like waiting for the day. But
did the seagulls not steal them?
Well, one of them handed us the night. I opened the door and he went, "There you go, mate." I was out, cheers. So yeah. Well, I just wondered anyway.
Right, let's call it night, lads. Thanks for everyone watching. Thanks for subscribing to the podcast. Thanks for signing up to Patreon. And thanks to Geordie Gifts and Guillermo Clothing once again. I know we haven't mentioned those a lot, but it's because we're not in a normal environment. I'm wearing a t-shirt though, Dom, before you start kicking off. But yeah,